above anything they have to offer me, right? It's like, get over yourself, Mark. You've got to.
I believe if we could be indivisible, we would be indestructible. And
Hi, after this, I don't mean to ask you to put you on the spot to say, tell us what's going to happen in the future, but tell us what's going to happen in the future.
Good.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Keep Leading Live. Keep Leading Live is dedicated to leadership development and insights. I'm your host, Eddie Turner, the Leadership Accelerator. I work with leaders to accelerate performance and drive impact through the power of executive coaching, masterful facilitation, and professional speaking. Today, we are broadcasting live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. If you're joining us on one of these platforms, let us know. You can let us know by typing into the comment section to tell us who you are and where you're located. And if we see that you've given us a question, we will absolutely entertain your question. Or if you just simply have a reaction to something you're hearing, tell us what you think. Even if you disagree, let us know that too. We welcome you to be a part of the conversation. Hit the share button. If you hit the share button, then your colleagues can join our conversation as well, or have access to the replay immediately upon the conclusion of today's session. And if you're not following myself and my guest on social media, I'd like to encourage you to do so. Follow us. We'd love to have you as a part of our network and stay connected to you. In today's episode of Keep Leading Live, we will explore the essential principles of collaboration. We're going to do so through the eyes, the lens, and the work of Dr. Ibeh Agbanyim. If we master these principles that he's going to share with us, we'll achieve success through effective collaboration and have an actionable guide that we can use and refer to over and over. Now, why Dr. Ibeh Agbanyim? He and I met at the Harvard Kennedy School. He is a highly regarded executive coach. He's a science practitioner and a best-selling author. He's celebrated for his expertise in enhancing workplace relationships. Dr. Agbanyim earned his PhD in industrial and organizational psychology from Grand Canyon University and holds executive certificates from MIT and Harvard. He co-authored Leading with the Heart, Building Successful Teams with Trust and Compassion. He's contributed to prestigious publications such as Psychology Today and Forbes. Now, today, we will discuss his very popular The 5 Principles of Collaboration: applying trust, respect, willingness, empowerment, and effective communication in human relationships. Dr. Agbanyim, welcome to Keep Leading Live.
I thank you so much, Eddie. You are the real McCoy.
Thank you, my friend. I am so excited to have you. It's been too long since we've really hung out. So tell us what I may have missed about your background that you want the audience to know about.
I think you got it all right. When you were introducing me, I was asking myself, me, that's how good it was. So thank you so much.
Well, you're quite accomplished and one of the most humble people I know. But I'll tell you something. I really respect the work that you do and the impact that you're having around the globe. And this book is a really good book. And we would love to know, the 5 principles of collaboration. What motivated you to write this book?
Yeah, thank you, Eddie. Before I answer that question, let me just put one or two things in your mind before I answer that question. Collaboration is desperately needed. In fact, collaboration is an essential requirement for human relationships. I'll put it this way: we already busy, and people are busy, whether in a relationship, whether you're hanging out with your friends, or whether you're an executive running an organization. So imagine recent research says that an average American makes about 35,000 decisions on a daily basis. 35,000 decisions on a daily basis. And other studies says that people process thousands and thousands of thoughts on a daily basis. And our thoughts are 80% of them are negative thoughts, and 95% of them are repeated thoughts. So we are constantly bombarded internally about what's on our mind. So you can imagine if we are not collaborating or working with people, imagine how suffocated we can be with such information. So that's why I say collaboration is very, very essential. It's very needful. It's very required if you want to be a well-rounded. And as far as the neuroscience scientist goes, neuroscientists they say that Dr. Bruce Perry said that our brain is a social organ. So people are wired to connection. So there is a high need of people collaborating in every facet of life. What made me write this piece? I would say it comes 3 P's. One is observation, one is experience, and one is also research. So having traveled extensively, I realized that the act of collaboration is universal. People mention those 5 principles that I tabulated in my book. In one way or the other, they mention them. What they need to collaborate. So while traveling, I experienced all that from different parts of the world. Whether it's the Southeast Asia or Africa or Dubai. For that reason, I felt like it would be a good idea to put it in writing. That way people can carry around with them. That's why I wrote the book.
Very interesting. All right. Well, you also answered one of the questions I was going to ask you, and that is, what is collaboration? So thank you for delineating that and what makes it important. And I like the interesting part that you said about the brain being a social. Give me that part one more time.
Our brain is a social organ, and it's ripe
social
for connection.
organ. I've
According to
never
Bruce
heard of it
Perry.
referred to that before. A social organ. Very interesting. Thank you very much. Now, when you talk about the reason for writing the book and how you put this down for people to be able to refer to, you've given us 5 principles. What are they?
Thank you. The 5 principle that I found universal was they are trust, respect, willingness, empowerment, and effective communication.
Is one of them more important than the other?
I don't think so, but they should come, because if any one of them is missing in relationship, that area will be deficient. So clear, each one of them has a role to play. So all we need to do is pay attention to how we, how those 5, if I may say that.
Okay.
I hope that makes sense, Eddie.
It does. Well, in your book, you started with trust, and that's one reason I asked the question. I didn't know if trust was more important than the others. So talk to us about trust. What role does trust play in collaboration and communication?
Yes, trust is it's a very transactional construct. In other words, if you don't prove trustworthy, it's hard for somebody else to initiate same thing to you. So trust is transactional and it's also mutual. Trust doesn't exist in a vacuum. It has to be earned. And what do I mean by that? Trust is trans, which means it penetrates every area of our life, whether it's in a business area, whether it's in a social area, whether it's in a relationship. Now, I there's a study or survey that I conducted over the years, and it kept coming back over and over again that in business and relationship, trust rank number one. So trust ranks number one in business and in relationship. Now, interestingly, it also ranked number two in those areas. But in a social setting, respect ranks number one. So when you think about it, it tells us that trust has, you can't just generalize your employees at work. They need trust from you. Yes, they do need trust, but individually, some of them maybe they need to be effectively communicate with them. Or some of them, they like you to empower them to do more things. So you
What do you
can't
do when
generalize
trust doesn't exist?
when it comes to,
Sorry,
I'm
I thought you were
sorry.
done. Sorry. What do you do when trust doesn't exist?
It creates a vacuum. So creating an area an environment of effective communication will be the first place to go to. You need to find out why are you not trusted. And again, since you mentioned that there are three types of trust that I might like to share. So trust is not just one. There are different levels of trust. And one of them is what is called goodwill trust. Now, good trust essentially means the fact that we are human beings. There is a fundamental, innate expectations that we have of each other. So when you see a human being, another human being, it doesn't matter where you see them. Your first reaction is not to run away. Your first reaction is to be cordial, or that's the goodwill type of trust. Opposed to when you see a gorilla, 800-pound gorilla on the street or in an elevator, the natural thing to do is to flee. So trust, the goodwill type of trust simply suggests that we have a fundamental expectations from one another. And then
Okay.
when you come to contractual, the second one is contractual. Now, contractual type of trust can be verbal or written. So there are some people, when you talk about the contractual trust, you talk about agreeing to do things and then you stick to it. For example, we are having this podcast right now because we agreed, whether written or verbally. So we convey here and then we are doing it. So if one of us didn't show up, we have violated that contractual trust. Now, the third one is called competence type of trust, and it's expertly based on skills. So, face it, when I go to my doctor, I don't necessarily know him on a family level, on a personal level, or relationship level. I'm going to him expressly because of his skills as a medical doctor. So I trust him based on that. If I'm flying an airline, or if I'm taking a flight to a destination, I'm trusting the pilot based on competence trust.
Yes.
I don't know other parts of his life, but all I know is hopefully he will take me to my destination in good spirits. So if you understand that there are different types of trust, it will be very difficult to discard another human being. Because when you say you don't trust somebody, I hear it all the time when I go coaching. People will say, I don't trust my manager. And I always go back and ask them, how come you don't trust them? What level of trust you don't trust them? And then they'll ask me, what do you mean? I say, well, we have different types of trust. And start on trust.
So you gave us three levels.
Tell me
I'm
one
sorry,
thing,
we have a
go
little
on.
bit of a delay. So I'm sorry if I keep cross talking you. We have a little delay. So sometimes I think you're done, and then I start talking. You're still going. So my apologies for that. So my big question is, when now you've given us three levels. When either of these levels is impinged upon, how do we resolve it?
Thank you for that question, Eddie. You resolve it by, again, it goes back to effective communication. You have to communicate. It's about communication. Otherwise, you have what they call response bias. And response bias is basically when you're giving somebody the answers that you expect them to have.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. So the way to fix that problem of distrust is to communicate with the person that you are distrusting. You can't just let it go. You can't assume. You have to approach it with effective communication.
Okay. Thank you. Now, you have a whole chapter on effective communication. Now, that means something different to different people. So, what is effective communication?
The essence of communication is to be understood. If you are not being understood, that means you have not communicated effectively. Effective communication is basically making sure that the level of language that you are using in a communication is understood by whoever that you are communicating with. And there are different types of communication. But to be effective, you have to use the language that the person will understand. Otherwise, communication has not taken place. So effective communication is you meeting people where they are and speaking in that language. When I mean language, I'm saying even if it's in English language, you don't use academic words or technical words to a person who is not in your field of training. So you speak in a level that people can understand you. That's what effective communication is.
Okay. Thank you for defining that. Speak in the other person's language and make sure not to make assumptions. Talk about it, is what I'm hearing you say. So thank you for giving us that solution for those who may not know what to do. They now have a couple of actionable steps that they can take. Well, I want to pause right now to acknowledge the sponsor of the Keep Leading podcast. If a single employee's indecision can cost an organization $10,000 to $1 million, imagine the potential financial impact when more individuals are added to this indecision equation. It can spiral out of control very quickly. What's the solution? The solution is Decision X, a bespoke on-demand service designed to help your leaders overcome indecision and move forward with their work. Visit Papillon MDC and discover how you can help your team get unstuck, shift perspective, and advance today. Visit papillonmdc.ca. My friends in Canada there. All right, very good. Dr. Ibeh Agbanyim and I are talking today about the 5 principles of collaboration. And Dr. Ibeh is an executive coach, best-selling author, speaker, scientist, practitioner, a certified mental health and wellness expert, and also a prolific author. We're talking about his book, but I want to shift just a moment. Dr. Ibeh, you've written a lot in Psychology Today and Forbes, and I often read your Psychology Today articles. And in reading them, you've covered so much ground. Is there one of these articles you've written that is like your favorite, or you find yourself sharing the most with people?
Yeah, I won't say there's one because there are quite a few of them. But let me just highlight on one, the one I wrote about smiling, smiling in the workplace. There was something about that article that got a lot of attention, and it has been should I say, republished by other magazines just by doing that. And then the second one is the most recent one that I just published, the music, how music is very important in the workplace. And I mentioned something about 53 to 72% of surgeons, they listen to music. This study was worldwide, a worldwide study that surgeons listen to music. 53 to 72% of surgeons listen to music while conducting their surgical procedures. So these are the two that I can just, I can go on and on, but I'll just leave it at that too. But yeah, smiling and using music.
All right. Well, the importance of smiling and the importance of music in our lives. Well, if you are not already following Dr. Ibeh Agbanyim, do so and check out those articles that he's posted in Psychology Today for some incredible insights. Now, I have someone joining us from LinkedIn, Ezra Miller. Hello, Ezra. Ezra is a loyal follower of the Keep Leading podcast. She's I appreciate her tremendous support. She's joining us all the way from Turkey. And so Ezra says, vulnerability is key for trust. If as a leader, I am not sharing my emotions, then I'm not opening it space for others to share their emotions. And if I am vulnerable, I am opening a space which is safe and brings trust. This is my experience. Thank you very much. I really enjoy listening. Thank you, Ezra, for sharing your reaction to what we're discussing and sharing what your approach is. But what's your reaction to what Ezra, who's a master certified coach, is saying here, Dr. Ibeh?
Absolutely. I agree with him. I agree with her. Vulnerability, of course, is the key, and it takes humility to be vulnerable. If you're not, it's hard for you to be vulnerable. So trust and vulnerability, they go hand in hand. And I forgot to think though in what I missed. There's something that they said, hearing is not the same as agree. You can hear things and disagree, but you are not entitled to disagree until you understand. And this was said by Supreme Justice Sonia Sotomayor. I'm sorry, go ahead.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, I apologize there's a little delay for you and I. So for those who are just joining, so I apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off there. So thank you for acknowledging what Ezra said there. We appreciate that, Dr. Ibeh. And Ezra Miller, thank you again. Master Certified Coach all the way from Turkey. We appreciate you and your loyal support of the Keep Leading podcast. If you are listening and enjoying our conversation, please feel free to share your reaction as well, no matter where you're joining us from, which platform. All right. Now, Dr. Ibeh, you talked a lot about communication and trust and this whole goal of how this allows us to collaborate. And that can be difficult at times for people. So if there are barriers, what can we do?
Again, it goes back to, it depends on what but it goes back to communication. You can't tell, you can't confront whatever issue you're having without communication. And now communication, we have non-verbal and verbal communication. So we have to communicate. Communication brings down the barrier, especially when it's effective communication. Because I cannot tell you how many times I've been to workplaces for training, to train their executives. And whenever they tell a story about how their employees are not, or their managers or supervisors are not doing well, what I'll ask them, have you mentioned it to them just like you're telling me? They'll say, well, I don't have time, and they are busy. They will come up with all kinds of excuses. I say, you have to call them and let them know where they are standing. Because if not, like Bob said last time, that's inhumane. When people don't know where they are standing, that's inhumane. So I believe communication is everything. Now, erroneous assumption or untested assumption can lead us to that rabbit hole You make all kinds of assumptions in your head, and most of the times you come out wrong. So the best thing to do is to learn how to communicate.
Thank you for that. And in your book, you make the point that there's a role that empowerment plays when we're trying to overcome these barriers.
Yeah, of course, empowerment. If you don't give people the green light, if you don't validate what they're doing, it is difficult. It affects job satisfaction. It affects employee engagement. It even affects motivation. So if I can simplify it, there is a need for us to empower our workforce, our team members. Now, when we fail to do that, click one way or the other, you see people, you will see the shift happening eyes. So there's a need for you to allow your employees to express themselves at work. I'll give you another example. When I did a study about in one of the companies, so what they did was most of the employees were the ones that feel comfortable and they were retained in the workplace. They told me that they like their supervisors and they like how they allow them to do things, make decisions. And because of that, there was a direct relationship between job satisfaction and empowerment. So I always encourage my clients to make sure that they communicate, number one, with their employees, and also allow them to make decisions that affects them directly. I hope that answers your question, Eddie.
I apologize. I pressed
Eddie,
the wrong
can you hear
button.
me?
It does indeed. Yes, I hit the wrong button there for a second. It does indeed, Dr. Ibeh. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Now, I'm really enjoying our conversation, and I could talk to you for hours. But tell me, what's the most important message you would like to leave our audience with?
My message is very simple. There is no difference between how you operate at work, you operate at home. If we learn how to humanize the workplace, what I mean humanize the workplace is when you treat people with utmost respect, when you treat people with absolute trust, when you empower people to do things, to do what they know how to do, or when you allow them to willingly, when you do all those things, you will eventually, they will willingly do work for you. And companies are losing money. I'm talking about millions of dollars in work-related stress, and this stress sometimes we generate them. When I mean generate, I mean the organizational management generates such stress. So if we learn how to humanize the workplace by respecting people, by giving them the benefit of the doubt and trust their judgment, because you already trained them, just allow them to do the job, and then let them have the willingness to exercise what they know. If we know how to do that, I'm not about the technical skills, because technical skills already trained them. But the soft skills is where companies lose their money. And somewhere about $300 billion a year, what organizations lose in occupational related stress. Workers' comp, absenteeism, presenteeism, all those things come together because we find a way not to dehumanize the workplace sometimes. So my campaign is to humanize the workplace, that people will give you the absolute high productivity and performance.
All right. Thank you. And on the Keep Leading podcast, I always ask, is there a quote or a piece of advice you've received that you use that helps you to keep leading?
Yes, there's one that I always use, travel around. I use it to close my workshops. It simply says, if you hear a voice within you say you cannot paint, by all means, paint, and that voice will be silenced. That's by Vincent van Gogh.
All right.
So
Thank you.
basically, employees allow your people to be, and they will do the work for you. Don't be afraid.
All righty. And I want to acknowledge that Stephanie Williams is giving us an emoticon. She's giving us a heart. So we'll give that right back to you. We appreciate that. She's joining us from Facebook. So we appreciate that. And if people want to know more about you, where can they find you, Dr. Ibeh?
They can. I'm very present at LinkedIn. That LinkedIn is my main go-to, and also my email address is powerofengagement@t.net.
All right, very good. And we'll remind them that your website is fvgrowth.com, and they can also learn more about you there as well. Well, it has certainly been my honor and privilege to have you as my esteemed guest today, Dr. Ibeh. Thank you for joining me here on the Keep Leading Podcast live.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eddie. I'm grateful.
And thank you for listening. That concludes this episode, everyone, where we learned more about the 5 principles of collaboration and how mastering these can make us more effective in our personal and professional lives. I'm Eddie Turner, the Leadership Accelerator, reminding you that leadership is not about our title or our position. Leadership is action. Leadership is an activity. It's not the case of once a leader, always a leader. It's not a garment that we put on and take off. We must be a leader at our core and allow it to emanate in all we do. So whatever you're doing, always keep leading.